G'day guys. We are going to go directly into our Tradify settings now because there are so many components that we need to fiddle with and adjust, and also for you to get your head around, so that as we start building out the rest of the program and tailoring it towards your business, you want to be able to jump back in, adjust settings, and tweak things as we go. Particularly when we get to some of the billing rates, we get some of the pricing lists, and also the way we lay out our quotes and invoices for clients. So let's jump in, get the screen share underway, and just as before as well, it would be ideal if you could log into Tradify so that you can go through these at the same pace. You may want to have one open on each screen, or split your screen up so that you can have my video and then you can also have your Tradify account so that we can work through this together. So we're in our Tradify dashboard here at the moment. We're going to scroll down the left-hand panel to settings, and we're going to work sequentially through this list here. So if you've got a coffee or an energy drink, we're going to be here for a few minutes, and I'm going to do my best to explain every component that we see here and how we should be setting these things up. So at the moment, you will just have probably a normal standard labor rate. We want to keep a standard labor rate and just make sure that this is at our bill out rate. So the amount that we actually bill out, you can call it whichever you like, but I would recommend titling it standard labor. Let's just use $100 for the purpose of this example. This is ex GST as well, because we have here GST or no GST. So we're going to go $100 plus GST. And also we're going to hit the drop down and add in what our hourly rate actually costs, or our estimated hourly rate. So you will take your most expensive staff members, so take your qualifieds, for example. You want to add on 11% or 12%, depending on which financial year you're looking at. We want to add on 12% for super, and then we want to add on 4.5% to 5% for work cover. So generally we're going to be adding on about 17% to their normal wages rate. So their normal hourly rate, how much you pay them, you'll be adding that on and then putting that total amount in here. And we don't have to worry about selecting the account that it goes in, but if you do want to do some billing rounding, so to the nearest 30 minutes, and then also maybe some minimum charges, you could put that in there. But what this will do is this will alter the way their timesheets are reflected in jobs. So for the moment, I don't want to add any complexity if we don't need to. So let's leave billing rounding and billing minimum as they are. In future, if you find that the guys are doing charge up jobs and you're billing the client for 1 hour 17 minutes, then you might want to round things up to the nearest hour or the nearest 30 minutes. That's how that works. So we've got our standard rate here. You can see I've done an overtime rate, which is a 50% increase. You could add one of those in if you like, but we can always come back and do that after. So in the concept of keeping things as simple as possible, just do your standard labor rate for the time being. And that's it for billing rates. We're going to move on to bills and purchases here. This is if you would be pushing out purchase orders to subcontractors, or if you're pushing out purchase orders for EWP or lift hire or that kind of thing. I would always recommend just banging in a random number that is a couple hundred above zero. It's not really a good look to be an operating company and send out a purchase order for 0001. So just whack a 211 in there, or a 97, or just put a couple of numbers in there so that we can skip the looking new area and jump straight into looking as though we've been doing this forever. And we don't have to really worry about the default markup at the moment. We can come back and fix that after. Now we do want to hit save on this. Make sure that you've got your next purchase order number adjusted there. Hit save, and you can see in the top hand corner it lets us know when we've saved as well. And then we're going to move on to company. So you'll put your company name in, you'll put your ABN, obviously Australian dollar, and also your delivery address. Just copy them straight out of Xero, exactly how you do have in Xero and your quotes and in your invoices. But this doesn't reflect anywhere else other than in Tradify, but it's just a good housekeeping. Now we're going to hit save on that and actually move on to the document theme. So this is a pretty in-depth area, and We're going to keep one document theme for the time being. In future, you may wish to add more, but the document theme is generally like you would have seen in Xero. You could, for example, you could have a different document theme for a different service of the company that has got a different branding. But for the purpose of most of us, we're all using the same brand for all of our services. So let's just do a standard document theme. We select that. We jump in, we have a look. You should put your contact details in here. You can keep it titled as is. You can also fiddle around with the colors later on, and I do recommend uploading a logo as well. It just looks tidy. What you may need to do is see how the logo looks within the previews, and then adjust the sizing of your logo, and you might just choose to screenshot it if you don't have any logo editing software. And we want to get that logo to look really neat and tidy. So jumping over to the Invoices tab, I would recommend you copying your terms and conditions from your Xero invoices. If you don't have T's and C's, it's probably a good opportunity for you to consult something like ChatGPT for the time being. In future, your T's and C's will get more and more in depth as you troubleshoot more and more problems that happen on site, or not necessarily on site, sorry, with collecting accounts. So copy your terms and conditions over from Xero. And then I want to talk to you about what we have here with these toggle items. So this section carries true for quotes as well, and it becomes more important when we do get the quotes. But this allows us to see what we're actually showing to the client. So for our invoicing, we probably don't need to show job number because that's an internal thing that we will be using. But we definitely should show the site, the job address, a reference number if the builder has given us a reference number, and the job description as well. Now you may choose to turn the job description off for invoicing purposes. It's probably a good idea because that job description will be for our internal use. Now, line items as well, because we are going to push our draft invoices to Xero, we should leave most of this on. But this is also a question for yourself and your accounts, or your admin or your bookkeeper, as to what is the easiest way to push the most amount of information over to Xero without having to fiddle around with too much. So you could come in here, you could turn off quantity and unit price and discount and just show full amount, but leave these on for the time being. And when it gets over to Xero, you can have a look at how that comes in, and you can come back and toggle some of these preferences on and off. Okay, so you can also hit preview to see how this would look. And we're just going to select that now. So this is what our draft invoice would look like. And look, it looks pretty straightforward. Now, what you may choose to do is, like we were saying, remove show quantity, remove unit price, add discount in there and see how this looks. This may be a better way to present your information and to push it through to Xero. Okay, so I'm going to toggle those back on for the time being. Hit save on that. Jump back into our document theme. I'm going now to quotes. This is where it is quite important. Now your quote terms are something that you should already have set in Xero or wherever you're quoting from, and bring those quote terms over and paste them into here. Now, with our quotes, we can leave all of the quote details on, but when we get to how do we want to display information to the client for quoting purposes, this is where it's really important for us internally. We want to have a price list or a cutting list internally on our quote templates so that we know how many boxes of nails we need, how many links of 2400 timber or sheets of 2400 ply, or, you know, we're going to break up our quotes on our back end as I suppose like a cutting list for lack of a better term. But we also want to make sure that our clients don't see all of our inner workings. Our clients only see lump sums. So if we turn off show quantity and show unit price, and we're going to leave show sections on, and I'll explain what sections are when we get to our quote templates. But let's have a look at how this would look for the client to receive a quote from us. So we can see we've got our time, our materials, and our miscellaneous. Now, these are broken up into the bold area is actually a section. And instead of breaking them up as Tradify does in time versus materials and miscellaneous, I like to break them up in sections of areas of the project. So they could be internal versus external. They could be stage 1 versus stage 2 for your section. They could be first fix versus second fix. But in the general groups of lump sums that your client wants to see, sections are a good opportunity to break those up and give a segmented pricing without saying this is every single length and every single item that we are including in our price. And that way they don't see your number of hours versus the rate as well, because that just opens us up to questions and discrepancies about how long we're actually on site versus how much we're billing them, because we want to increase our efficiency and we don't want to get hammered on price afterwards. So I'm going to leave that as is. We're going to have our show quantity off and our show unit price off and hit save on that. And we don't necessarily need to fiddle with bills just yet or service reports, but you can come back and fiddle with these after. Job service reports have been very helpful in the past to, when there are discrepancies on site, you can produce a job service report which can break down timesheets, can break down materials, can break down who clocked in when on site, and produce that for the client if they have any, if they require any further information about how the job went. Okay, so that's our document theme run through quite quickly. We're jumping over now to our emails. Now these are our automated templates that once we have prepared, let's just say our quote, for example, once we've prepared our quote and we hit send to client, this is the automated email that pops up. Now, an interesting piece that you can do here is you could have multiple quote templates. You could have one for Sam, and you can put your lovely wording in here. I want you to make this a little bit more in depth. We can go, hey, and we can use our variables of customer name. We can copy that. Hey, customer name. Thank you for your RFQ. Obviously, you're going to write this much nicer, but you get the idea. And we can hit save on this. Now, I wrote my name in there. What we can do is we can go new email template. We can call it quote John, and you could copy the same component in here. We need a subject. Let's go cancel. Let's copy this one. We can even duplicate this out. That's much easier. Let's go quote John. Exactly the same. Cool. Now, with this, if you have two people that are quoting, when the person goes to send the email, their profile is going to remember where they sent it last. So the first time you send an email out, you'll select the drop down to quote from your name. The other person, let's say you are me, you select quote Sam. Let's say John logs in on his account, he selects quote John. It will remember which selection you used previously, so that you're always emailing out from the person's email signature, which you can place in there. That way you can carry your email signatures through with you so that it doesn't look like a super automated email set. Now you can do that for everything, but the main component here is for your quotes. I would recommend doing your quote first and then just copy them over to your purchase orders, your job service reports, and your invoices. But the quotes is the main component here because we're pushing invoices to zero so clients don't see that side. We're not really going to be sending job reports directly out of Tradify. We would probably export the PDF and send it in a plain text email through our normal email provider because we want to put a lot more context in there. But quotes, we are going to be pumping quotes out through Tradify. So I'd work on those. Now over to inquiries. We don't have to play too much with the inquiry section. If you are struggling to keep up with who you have spoken to, who is kind of in the pipeline, then you could explore this, but I don't tend to use the inquiries too much because I tend to leave requests for quotes in my inbox, knowing that anything that sits in my inbox is things I haven't worked on. And then once a quote has been sent, I drag that over and then put it into a leads folder in my inbox, mailbox folders. So I tend to organize my inbox instead of needing to use inquiries, but you may find that this is a handy piece for you. Integrations, you will need to connect with your accounting software, obviously Xero, My QuickBooks. And then we get into the invoices piece. Now, we don't actually have to fiddle with this too much. We're probably just going to change the number, just a couple hundred in, so that it doesn't look like this is the first invoice we've ever sent. And we're going to hit save on that. Now to jobs. Jobs is an interesting one because we're going to start our job numbers also at a couple hundred in or 100 in. We are also, we have some custom job fields that we can fiddle with here. That will make more sense once you're actually in the job, and you may choose to we've gone to the extent of just putting our core values in these because it does show up in the job, but you can fiddle with these later. We don't have to edit them just yet. So job status is a really important one that we want to play with though, because the team can see all of these. And one thing that I do first is I change the unassigned job and I put this down to a very boring color because I want to use that red. Now I'm going to add a new job status in here that's going to sit, let me explain what they are first. So a job will have a tag associated with it with this color. So if you've added a job in but no one's been assigned to it, it'll sit as unassigned. If you have assigned some staff members to it, it'll automatically mark itself as assigned. If you have scheduled anybody, it'll automatically turn to the different color as well. And then once you have logged a timesheet or an expense on it, it'll go to in progress. So you'll be able to see color coded what jobs you have in the pipeline that haven't started yet or haven't got dates for. You'll be able to see what has been scheduled but not started on site. You'll be able to see when work has actually been started on site. You'll be able to see jobs that are cancelled or on hold. But what I was going to add in is I want to add a red one and call this -- office use only -- because when the team on site see this, they see a drop down menu, and I want them to see a drop down menu and for their eyes and their brain to stop thinking about anything below the office use only line. That's just for a good housekeeping when your team are on the app. And then below we can have to invoice, which I'm actually going to be a little bit more specific with, to invoice quoted. And what this means is that when you close out a job and you know all the timesheets have been put in there, and you also have added any expenses that were related to the job in bills, then you personally can say, yourself or your project manager or whoever's responsible for running the job can say, look, that job is now complete. I'm going to mark that to invoice quoted. And then your admin team can see any of the pink and purple line items are things that they need to do. And to add to that, we're going to go to invoice quoted so that they know whether it's a quoted job or whether it is a to invoice charge up. And we're going to add a pink color to that as well, so that your admin can understand without having to talk to anybody whether this is a job that is ready to be invoiced and there is a quote attached to it where they will just send the quote off, or whether it is a job that doesn't have a quote and is not supposed to have a quote because it's a charge up job. Now this is important because sometimes you may forget to attach the quote to the job. Sometimes there's lots of variations that happen and it can just get a little bit messy. So we want to make sure that if you assign it to the job status of to invoice quoted and your admin person jumps in and finds out there's not a quote attached, they can flag that to you and say, there's a quote missing from this, I can't find it, can you help me out here? And there may be a very good justification for it, but this is an opportunity to stop any of the accidents happening. So I'm going to change the color of cancelled as well. We're just going to make this an orange alert to style color. That way we can see a nice little color flow here. Now you may want to also add to invoice quoted plus variations, or you could add some complexity to it, but just trial those job statuses for the time being. Now to kits. Whoops. Let's make sure we save this. Okay, there are also job categories which you can play with too, and then job service reports, we're just going to start that number up a little bit higher too, although we don't use job reports that much. That's more for internal use. Now kits. I don't tend to make too many kits in Tradify because I tend to use quote templates to prefab my kits, and this is going to make more sense in a little bit. But just a good example for this is you could make a kit for a hot water system where you've got several parts that are always required in order to install a hot water system. And then you could have a kit for hot water system, whatever the model number is, which will bring all of the parts that you use for that one item. But I tend to use quote templates instead because I find it a lot easier and more customizable. But you can come back and use kits after. We don't necessarily have to worry about payments at the moment because we are invoicing the vast majority of our work. If you do take cash on delivery, then you can fiddle with this section here. And to our price list. Price list is one that's going to be very fun, and we're going to jump back from our price list to our quote templates in the next video. But this is where you can itemize every item that you use or every piece of material that you use, so that when you prepare your quote template and then you prepare your quote on site, you will not only have a list of exactly what you have quoted for, but you'll be able to then use that list to do your material orders as well. So I think this is a really important piece to the puzzle that we tend to overlook because there's a bit of manual entry involved. The beauty of it is though, is we're only entering it once, and then if there are price increases, then we're going to fiddle with that as they come in. Pricing levels, we don't have to worry about too much because we're going to select our pricing as opposed to using a fixed markup. But for the purpose of this, let's just slap a 20% in our markup pricing. And if we need to fiddle with that, we can come back and adjust that accordingly. Our quotes as well, we want to start our quotes a little bit higher. Let's put them at 113. Default expiry at 30 days is fine. We want to send quote reminders. I want you to edit your quote reminder template here because that is a little bit boring, and I know that you are smarter than this and you can make something that's a bit more compelling for the builder to get back to you and want to respond to that. You can also turn on text reminders. I would absolutely do that. It does come at a little charge, but you've spent all the effort quoting site, you've been for a site visit, you may as well send them a text message to remind them to give you fucking input so that they can confirm the job so that you can win the job. Okay. And down to scheduler, you can fiddle with the settings here of the start and end times of the day. That just adjusts the calendar as to how many hours in the day you can see, but a full 12-hour run's pretty easy. You can toggle your two-factor authentication here. We don't have to do too much in security, but staff members, I want you to add every staff member in. I also would recommend for you, so this is not just your guys on site, this is also for your admin team or your accounts or your bookkeeper. I recommend your bookkeeper having a login so that you can not only see what you've done, but you can also see the timestamps of when they did something, and then you guys can communicate through job notes and quote notes as well. But for our guys on site, put their full name, their email address, that's their personal email so that they can get their login access and their credentials. They're going to be on standard labor rate. You may choose to add complexity here and have different labor rates for apprentices versus qualifieds, but I recommend just keeping things nice and simple on standard labor rates, and we don't have to put their license numbers in. The most important piece though is what selections do we want them to see? Do we want them to be able to see steadings or staff members? Now, generally, all of our normal staff just need to see timesheets and jobs. No one really else needs to see invoicing and quoting. If you do have project managers, you'll want to be able to turn on your quoting, your purchases, job reports, scheduling. They might use inquiries as well. But for our normal staff members, just leave the two on for the time being and hit save. And you'll be able to add all of your staff members in. And you want to do that straight away. Now you do want to add your tax rates in here as well. Obviously all of us are GST at 10%. It's prefabbed for us, but just give it a quick look over to make sure that there has been no issues with the setup process. And then timesheets, you can select when your start of the pay run week is and adjust that accordingly. So that is the settings section. And in the next video, we are going to go into our quote templates. Then after that, we're going to do job templates. And then we're going to talk about KPIs. And after that, you will have all the skills that you need in order to optimize your Tradify account and get sending quotes and winning quotes and start running your jobs through here and making your life a hell of a lot easier.